Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take this drone here and we're going to do a test with R1 versus R8 in a heavy Wi-Fi environment to see what type of a difference running R1 versus R8 or R8 versus R1 gives you. So R1 through R5 are frequencies that are all within the band that Wi-Fi on the 5.8 gigahertz band occupies. R6, R7, R8 are all out of it. R8 being the farthest one away from it within race band. So it's been said that it's better if you're in a heavy Wi-Fi environment to use R8 versus R1 as far as frequency goes. The problem with R8 versus R1 is typically your video transmitter doesn't output as much power on R8 as it does R1, particularly whenever you are running, a lot higher output wattage, like 1 watt or whatever. So I'm running a 200 milliwatt VTX, but I'm going to run it in 25 milliwatts, and we're going to do the test and at that particular output wattage to hopefully minimize the difference between R1 and R8 as far as output power goes. So that's my theory. Now I don't know if that matters or not. As far as the output power goes, I do know that R8 on some of these 200 milliwatt HD0 VTXs sometimes have some issues, and mine definitely is susceptible to that. So if I try to run R8 on 200 milliwatts, I get really bad output. I'll show you a little of that here, what that looks like. Anyways, so we're running 25 milliwatts. I'm going to go through and we're going to do the test here, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. I want to talk through it and give you my synopsis on what I'm thinking. Well, not as I go through it. I've already flown them, but I'm going to give you my synopsis on what I thought as I was flying it. So I had the same basic pattern. I flew down out of the garage, around the house. I went down around the first tree there, and then I went on down a little bit to basically the end of my fence, turned around, came back, went around the tree in the front here, went down the opposite side of my house, down over along my backyard, across my neighbor's backyard, and then loop back up over the house, back down the street to tree down there near the park, loop around that tree, come back down, and then go down the street down this way to the end on there, loop around the tree, come back, and then if I have enough battery, do a loop around the roof of the house, come back down and land. So I did it twice for each one. I did R1 first on a battery and followed by the same battery R8, and then I reversed it, did R8 first on a battery followed by R1. You can see the results here. You can make your mind up what you think about it, but here's basically my thoughts on it. R1 definitely gets you a little farther as far as penetration goes, but it's a minimal difference, at least on 25 milliwatts. Now R8 it was better in certain places that you'll notice than R1 was, but when you got to the extremities of penetration range, whatever you want to call it, R1 definitely exceeded R8. But when you had less obstacles, less obstructions, R8 definitely had a clearer signal than R1, and this is a heavy RF environment, so there's definitely some merit to R1 versus R8. I think at a higher output power though, the advantages you get from running R1, because it'll output better on R1, R2 than it will on the upper frequencies, I think outweigh doing that. But at 25 milliwatts, the difference is minimal at best. Sometimes R1's better, sometimes R8's better. So my take is your best bet is probably to run a lower frequency, particularly if you're running higher output power. But if you're running a lower output power, anyone between R1 and R8 is going to give you basically the same results. You're going to have, a little bit better in some places, a little bit worse in some places. It just depends. That's my take on it. You guys make up your own mind from the footage here, have them side by side, and yeah. And I'll leave you guys with that. So there you go. Never stop flying, guys. See ya. Peace.